Hi, everyone. Today is the final episode of the Becoming That One House podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk more about that later.
Didn't know I was getting fired. Okay.
Other than
cool.
that, no, I'm getting fired.
Oh,
Are you staging a walkout? What's happening?
must be.
Or sit in.
I've seen a
You know
couple of
me, I
those
can't
recently.
walk. Now he's just trying not to laugh. Anyway, welcome to Becoming That One House podcast. I am, of course, your host, Jake. This is Joshua. I don't think I've ever called you Joshua. I don't think I
My mother called me Joshua, but
um,
not many other people do.
I lost
Jacob Benjamin.
student life director. Is that
Oh,
close-ish?
my Jake,
Nope.
You don't really mean this
It's
stuff.
fine. It's
And
fine.
then
I'm
Ben.
not even going to correct you anymore.
You don't mean it.
I mean, you just every time I say a different one, add it to your resume.
Yeah, I've got so many. They're going to go look at why did you get demoted and promoted so many times to different job titles. You know, some things went good, some things went bad.
It's the best of times.
Can't
and
win
worst
them
of
all.
times.
Yeah.
Anyway, this week we're going to be breaking down Ben's message, the rainbow. I think we all got kind of tired with those titles, didn't we? Yours was good.
What's wrong with the rainbow?
Was that the title?
You want
Yeah,
to like taste the rainbow like a Skittles thing?
That would have been funny.
Mm-hmm. Sure,
The
Josh
most
would've
colorful
liked it.
message you've ever heard.
Oh.
You didn't show a picture of the Ark experience with the rainbow projected on it.
Mm.
Missed opportunity.
It's fair.
Anyway, like I said, we're going through Ben's message, the rainbow. It was Genesis 9, 1 through 17.
Yep.
Yay, I got it right for once. Anyway, icebreaker. If you're willing to share a question like this, because it is kind of a personal question, apart from getting saved, what is the greatest second chance you've ever been given?
Think about that one.
When I was young, I stole money from my cousin, who was also my next door neighbor. And I thought he was going to hate me forever. And he forgave me.
It's a hard one for me.
I think it's hard because so many second chances you don't even know you're giving them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you need them in relationships. And we know, if you're being honest, you need them.
But it's
Yeah.
not like I go up to you and say, Ben, I forgive you. I'm giving you a second chance for this.
Most times, no. Most times, you just need grace.
I think that the thing that keeps popping in my mind, I guess I'll go here, is that early in Laura and I's marriage, when we were like just trying to figure out marriage and what do we even do and all that kind of stuff, for the first maybe even 8 years of our marriage, I was very passive. I was very like I didn't lead well, didn't in any of the areas, and all that kind of stuff, and then not all at once, but kind of came to the conclusion like, wow, I'm like not fulfilling my role and doing my part and doing the things. So kind of had a come to Jesus meeting with her. And, she had felt it for years and didn't, know how to communicate it sometimes. And then, but anyways, finally was like, nope, we're going to do this, even not fully understanding yet at the time how to do it. And for her to just like completely release control and to say, yes, I trust you. And to even let me mess up sometimes and to correct and course correct and all the things that's kind of what comes to mind for me. And, it's been obviously much better since, not perfect by any means, but I guess that comes to mind when I think of second chance, probably more when it's just to family and being a husband and a dad and all that stuff.
How about you?
I had a couple of different ones. The big one, the big pivot point in my life would probably be, I don't know if you can really count it as a second chance, but like when I broke my arm off and a doctor was provided to me that spent 9 hours putting it back together, little tiny shatter by little tiny shatter, and then having the ability to have a surgery that gave me the ability to bend my fingers again, which is, I don't know if you can call that a second chance.
Oh, I would. Absolutely, I would.
I think another one
Second chance / miracle.
would be
Mm-hmm.
the fact that my wife is still alive and or still with me. I'll let you decide which one, because I think I've told that story here before where, you know, in 2019 she had a significant mental health crisis that very nearly broke our marriage up before I knew what was happening. And you could argue whether that's me giving a second chance or God giving me a second chance.
I think it's right. Yes.
But yeah, so those are my big second chance moments of my life. I'm sure there's been a whole ton more because, like we said, there's so often you're given another chance without being told.
Mm-hmm.
Josh, you get to go first this week because it was
Okay.
Ben's message. What was your I'm going to call it that one takeaway?
I'm going to actually defer my one takeaway to what I heard sitting in the student section in church Sunday morning. He was going over the whole war bow analogy, which I thought was really good. And Jeremiah from the back just taps me on the shoulder, and I was like, "What?" And he's like, "I wonder if he was pointing it up towards Jesus, pointing towards like him being slain for us." And I was like, "Yes,
that kid's smart."
Yes, well done, Jeremiah. So your message came through well, and it was a great analogy that some students caught on to, and then I could just hear him kind of like, talking with some kids about it, and so it was cool. So my one takeaway is the war bow analogy, and how instead of the wrath being pointed down towards us, it was turned around and pointed toward Jesus ultimately, which, like we said last week, this whole story is pointing towards Jesus. Just another example of it that you communicated well. So
yeah, it's hard to get away from that as a takeaway from the message, just because rainbow, war bow, oh wow, it's pointed up. Like, what's that mean? Oh, he just hung it up. I think that's one interpretation, but it's more than that.
Yep,
it's more than that. He's firing it. He's aiming it at himself. So again, it's our ability to avoid sin is an important part of the discussion, but newsflash, we're ultimately not going to. And so the story has to go deeper. It has to be about God being the main character and what he's going to do with our sin, because we're going to keep sinning. And so it's less about our ability to avoid sin and more about how he's going to handle it and what he's going to do with it. And I think that's, the bow is a powerful image of that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So help us nuance because we were talking about this even in engagement hour afterwards, like help us nuance this thought that you're completely correct, and it's less about us trying to avoid sin, and it's more about what he can do with our sin and what he has done with our sin. How does that then lead into like the idea of like holiness and living a holy life, and like we should actually be trying to avoid sin in many ways, like you did say that in your message.
Yeah.
It's not primarily about what do you call it, behavior management necessarily. Right. That should be a byproduct or a fruit of coming to a relationship with Jesus. But can you kind of nuance that out a little bit of like what's that balance between, like, because what I think it can do for some maybe is it can start to lead to this idea, well, then avoiding sin isn't important.
Yeah.
And we know that's not true.
Unintended
like it is,
consequences.
it is
maybe.
Yeah. So
maybe emphasizing just how incredible God is and what he's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
An unintended consequence is not to bring it full circle and go and be holy.
Right.
Right. I think the story is begging us because we keep screwing up. So the story, let's just take Genesis 1-11, is begging us, or it's like we're crying out, like, please let there be something beyond just a second chance, because we're going to screw it up. Yeah. Noah got out of the ark and got drunk, and more specifically put his family, as Michael's going to talk about this Sunday, in a very, very vulnerable situation that led to more sin and more brokenness, taking advantage of, and everything that comes with that in the future generations. Here we go again. Yeah. Second chances aren't enough. Third chances aren't enough. Fourth chances, and so those are important and those are good. And so I understand what you're saying, though, that there could be something a little bit left as far as like, yeah, but we're supposed to strive. I just think Genesis 1-11 is specifically at that point in the story, I wanted to make sure that I hit, like, humanity is given a second chance, but if it's not way greater than that, we're all in big trouble. So is that Does that help answer your?
Yeah, I think what
It's-
you're saying is that we're not necessarily wrong. It's just that where we were at didn't necessarily go to
Yep.
that next step in what you were preaching. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I emphasize the,
Yeah.
What God's going to ultimately do.
Yep.
Because then we're going to get Noah's drunkenness, and then we're going to get the Tower of Babel. I mean, these are the next 2 chapters.
I know it. Yep.
Like,
Yep.
Oh, it's covenant with Abraham. That's going to fix it. Nope. Abraham screws up badly,
Mm-hmm.
and also obeys.
Yep.
Right. So you're right to say though that as Christ followers, we are free to not sin. We are charged to not just be witnesses, but to go out and avoid sin and to follow Him.
Yeah, and,
What-
and throughout, like, demanded to not sin. Like,
What happens though when you do sin?
use grace.
You just
Yes. Yes.
it can't be your charge is to go out and not sin. I've cleared the way. Go.
Well, what you're saying is it is a charge, but it's a charge of invitation,
Yeah.
which is and it's a hard thing to even describe.
It's like I
but
would
it's
say
like,
to put in 2 simple words, prepositions, for versus from, and the differences are huge.
yes,
I'm not
That's a good way to put
I'm
it.
not
Yep.
doing it for or to achieve it. I'm doing
Correct.
it because it was achieved for me.
Right.
So it's from Christ I go
out of reverence
versus
yes.
all I'm doing is I'm not knocking somebody if they say I'm living for Jesus. Like that's awesome.
Mhm.
As long as you have a deeper understanding that I hope you're operating from Jesus.
Right.
And not working for because we're getting further away from the gospel,
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's just it was in that one message. I
Yeah.
felt like it was important to
Yeah.
focus on look at God's pointing the arrows at Himself. That's what makes me exhale, not second chances. Yes, that lasts for 5 seconds, and it's
Right.
It's warped again.
Yep.
You went there a little bit with your sermon from chapter 8, but at the end of chapter 8, God goes, "I'm not going to bring a curse," and you know why I'm not going to bring a curse? Because I could. Because every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood. That's after the flood.
Mm-hmm.
We're in trouble.
Yep.
We cannot just have a second chance. We're done.
Yep.
We talk about being terrified. Oh, great, I have a second chance. So when I screw it up, I wonder what's going to happen then. So that's that's why I focused on what I did.
Yeah,
That's good though.
All right, so we're starting out with a good one here. Why is it important that God is not surprised by our sin?
Well, I think that makes Him God.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that He's not surprised, He's everything, all knowing. I think He, more specifically than even He's not surprised by it, I think He is making this sounds crazy. He's making accommodations for sinful people, like the sacrificial system. He's setting it up before people even really understand the what and the why and all that kind of stuff. He's making accommodations in chapter 9 where he talks about the value of human life, and I'm giving you animals for food, and there's going to be some enmity, and don't worry, but do this, and don't eat the blood, which is just there are protections in there, and God's putting a ton of value on human beings, but he's also he's talking about when there's bloodshed, how you respond to that, or how God's going to respond to that. Life for a life, right? That in the verses like 4 through 6, he's anticipating sin. He's ready for it. So he's not like, you're going to sin, and this is why I've changed my mind. I'm going to destroy the last 8 of you because look what's going to happen. It's awful. He's anticipating it, and then the rainbow stuff comes after that. His promise. He's covenanting with a broken people, which is trickier than it sounds. If we're in a covenant relationship and I say I'm going to respond regardless of what you do, and you say I'm going to respond regardless of what you do, we're in business here. We can have a real close and budding and beautiful relationship, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a God who makes and keeps promises, and us that don't. And how do you stay in a relationship with people like that? That's the tension that moves the story forward, not just through Genesis 11, but through all the Old Testament that ultimately leaves you feeling hopeless, and then into the Gospels where you go, oh, okay. It's always been about Jesus and what He's going to do, because He is right and He is just to have a gag reflex and to have wrath at our sin. He can't help it. It's who He is. He has to. He has to judge it. You know, but he also loves us, and we're just such a beautiful creation to him. We were so precious and special to him. Why? I don't know. Because he made us, because we are, you know?
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I think it just emphasizes the vastness of his love towards his people. He's not surprised by your sin, which means, like you pointed out, he knows what you're going to do through all eternity, and yet still loves us, saves us, gives us grace and mercy, second chances, all the things.
I love how he just has space for it. Jesus to Peter, before the rooster crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. He's not even flinching.
Judas still sits at the table with him. Like, I mean, all of those scenarios we see.
Mm-hmm. He's not even like flinching, though. He's not even sweating by it. He's not. You could argue he's hurt by it, of course. I mean, but he knows it's coming, and he just keeps leaning in. How? Ultimately, because the way he solves attention is he takes the arrows that were meant for us, which needs more conversation, which we'll get into, which doesn't mean final judgment, because there has to be a final judgment, right? Because if heaven's going to come to earth, earth can't have sin and brokenness in it.
Right.
It's just that it's our way, his way of dealing with it, so that we can be saved from it and know that we can be saved from it. Not just like, oh, that was a pretty nice thing, I hope that works. It's accomplished in full. It is finished. What? All of human history? Nope. Salvation. He made a way that is finished. You can't add to it. You can't subtract from what he did on the cross. And then, of course, the resurrection. It's finished. His work is finished on behalf of humankind. The propitiation for our sins is finished. Now, you have to accept the gift, right? You can't just be like, that was really nice.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you can.
You can. That makes me very sad that I think people do. They like admire Jesus, and that's maybe where it stops.
Do you think that things like The Chosen have led people to do that more, to just, I don't know how to say it, just admire the story of the Bible more than what it actually is? Because like that's one of the things I haven't seen The Chosen. I just have seen people's reactions to it. It's just one of the things that I wonder about it, where it's like, are we taking this piece of art and making it the gospel too much, or are we accepting it as just an expression of someone's interpretation of the gospel?
Don't you think that happens with, like, all of us as witnesses? Don't we have multiple examples of, like, how people are responding? Like, so my one atheist friend is like, I like you, and we can debate, but other than that, don't come to me with the whole salvation thing. I don't want to hear it. You know, and another friend could be like, man, I'm really interested to hear more. I really admire you. And so I'm kind of almost like admiring this Jesus person. He has admirable qualities, and that's kind of where it stops. And then there's another person that watches The Chosen, or that we're in conversation, and this person goes, I feel deeply convicted about my sin, and I feel like I need this Jesus that you're talking about, you know? So I don't know how to answer that. It brings out what's already there, but it doesn't just do that. It's not just a revealer of what's in your heart, because God's in the business of changing hearts and lives.
Yeah.
You know?
I do think that, not to make this episode of the podcast about The Chosen, but I do think that The Chosen gives...
I tried not to.
You won't stop. A humanity to the Bible that we've not seen other than in the Bible itself.
I'll call it an important work in our culture. I think it's an important...
I think that's...
You have to know what you're engaging, I think maybe would be helpful, but...
I just think it's funny that you can't watch anything else with Jonathan Romy.
You can?
You can't. I have. I've seen Jesus Revolution.
And have it not negatively or weirdly affect you?
I mean, he's basically Jesus in that movie too.
Well,
so.
that doesn't count then.
Also, I just don't think that was the story. There are so many interesting stories in that time frame, the Jesus Revolution time frame, that wasn't Jesus Freak. That was before then. But I think they focused on the wrong story. This isn't a movie breakdown either. I'll stop.
Really? You sure?
I'm
Let's go to another one.
trying.
Next question. Well, this is just kind of a discussion point. First, I got to say, the story of Saul being blinded is one of my favorite accounts from the Bible.
Mhm.
So I liked the kind of way that you used it to look back on Genesis and say and speak into second chances and God being greater than the second chances. So in the story of Saul, would you say that what happened to him was the second chance, or is it like for all of us, did it delay the second chance until, I don't know, Judgment Day maybe? I don't know.
Did God give him a second chance?
Oh, that's not really what the question is. Was the second chance, you're blind, now go back and do this, or is the second chance going to be you pivoted around this point and now here when you're coming to be judged, that's when the second chance happens?
Yeah, those are good. I mean, those are good talking points, all of them. I hope you feel it as you're asking that question of how important it is that this goes deeper than just a second chance. This is a transformational, completely life altering, shaking you to your core experience that was not less than a second chance. It was just way, way, way more and way deeper than a second chance.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want people to feel, just how important it is for God to be God, fully God. And that goes way beyond a second chance, but it's not less than that. It's not, I don't want to trivialize the second chance nature of the gospel or of God's grace, or, it's just deeper than that. Saul is, it looks like on the pages of scripture, Saul is on a literal path, Damascus, but a metaphorical spiritual path that is headed toward absolute destruction for other Christians, except that they have an eternal perspective. They're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
This guy is headed for major, ultimate destruction, eternal separation. And that pivot, that stopping him in his tracks, is one of the most profound stories that I see in Scripture.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a picture of what God has to do, I think, to be able to save us. I don't think we're like, yep, we're kind of on the right path, and we just don't make the best decisions, and we just need a couple of degrees course correction. I don't think that that's what Scripture says about our sinful hearts.
Mm-hmm.
So please add to that, though.
My brain went to, I think Saul's second chance was just like the rest of ours, is the fact that he existed. Which points back to what you were talking about. Like the fact that he did what he did with the ark and he existed is his second chance.
Noah.
No, Saul.
He did with the ark?
Because what Noah did with the ark
Yeah.
gave Saul a second chance.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
The fact that he's even around is an effect of God's grace of the second chance.
Ooh. Yeah.
He did like that.
That's good, isn't it? Yeah. That's going from Noah to Saul.
Mm. Yeah.
The fact that any of us have a chance.
But God.
Yep.
Saul.
Fine, go back to your message just because it was so good. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, actually, let's turn back to chapter 8. That's good. That was good.
So I'm reading this. That all you wanted to say on that, Josh?
Yes, that's
pretty
it.
profound. What do you
Okay.
want from me?
I do.
A book?
I don't want to interrupt him.
Nope. Yeah, that's
I mean, he could write a book.
Yeah, sure.
Wouldn't be that interesting. I'm not good at writing.
Stop it.
I don't know. You write scripts. Just publish a book of your scripts. Your scripts
I
for
rarely
YouTube.
writ scripts for YouTube. I
You
just
don't even
talk.
have to. You just kind
I
of sit
just
down
talk.
and go. Vah.
You can tell
He
when I write.
reacts.
You can
Josh
tell
Miller
when I write a
reactions.
script because
No.
it sounds really good.
But he doesn't.
The other ones.
He doesn't all the time react because of that AI video he did the other day.
That's true.
Right.
It's true. That was an informational one.
Was that one scripted?
Touche.
That one I did write a script for.
Okay.
Well done. You just parsed that out.
Well done.
Anyway, this question, I realize now that when I wrote it, I wasn't really thinking well about it. The question is it presumed that the rainbow is the first instance of the idea of a covenant in the Bible? I realize now that thinking about it now that that's not true because there was a covenant between God and Adam and Eve at the very least.
Yeah.
So
The first time I think you see the word is chapter 6, though.
Verse
Like right
18.
before the flood.
So I'm going to change the question to this. How is the covenant between God and Adam I'm going to say God and Adam, just so I don't have to say Adam and Eve every time, different from the covenant between Noah and God and Noah and his family?
Well, I think the first thing that the author wants you to hear or to see is that it's not different. So that first signal is be fruitful and multiply, Genesis 1. My mind goes right back to Genesis 1. So there's more similarities than dissimilarities. Despite all of your sin, despite all of the destruction, I am putting a high value, not just on you, but on you. I'm tasking you in much the same way as I tasked the first man and woman before sin. There's still the value. There's still the go forward and be fruitful and multiply and have dominion, take dominion, but do it with care, with love and care, and all of those things. Rule and subdue and fill the earth. And I think it's in the similarities that we find the power of it and the potency, because the dissimilarity is all of the sin in between, all of the screw ups, all of the deep, intense brokenness. And here God is in chapter 9 going, same thing as chapter 1, be fruitful and multiply. Oh, wow. Maybe I'm exhaling. Maybe, like Josh said the last week, maybe I'm nervous and uncomfortable, but I'm also going, oh, wow, he still has a plan that he's going to work out through us. I feel so humbled by that. So that's how I would say it's in the similarities, that there's a clear dissimilarity, and that is what he does with animals in chapter 9 and says they're now yours for food. I'm guessing, and I don't mean like when they were coming into the ark, because I think that was a God thing, but I'm guessing that there was enmity between man and animals before this time. I just think God is giving a clear kind of edict going forward that he's adding something new to the story, for better and worse, right? I mean, I think you could argue that in both directions. Like, it's sad that we have to like kill animals for food now, and yet we are in the top of the food chain. So as long as we understand it correctly, it's a gift from God. And as long as we have care for animals too, and we have respect, then it's not wrong to kill and to eat,
Yeah. I think you referenced to it, but when he says, and God blessed them in chapter 1, I think that blessed word is something I think
it's good.
Many will reference back to as like the covenant, the start of the covenant, because right after that's when it's the be fruitful, multiply, like you just said. And so, I think it's similar in the idea of kind of what you said. Like it's not full recreation, but it's a form of it. It's almost like it's the same formula that's being used. It's just now you're doing it in a broken world. And so there's that dissimilarity because of the brokenness of humanity, but to where with Adam and Eve, it was perfect, and it was supposed to be perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's maybe another question that would be brought out. So I remember a while ago, I think it was one of you two said that the numerical cues in the Bible, specifically with 40, kind of signifies the changing of an age within the Bible.
Yep.
At the start of each new age in the Bible, is there a new covenant that is made between God and whoever his people is at the time?
There's a correlation to it. I mean, when Moses is with the Israelites and he goes on Mount Sinai, he's there for 40 days, 40 nights, and then he brings down the 10 Commandments. So there's that covenant that happens.
There's David. There's a lot of there's several covenants in the Old Testament, and then there's the new covenant in the Old Testament, which is one reason that I don't like the term old for Old Testament, because it feels like it's outdated. But think about like Isaiah 53, the gospel that I use, the passage that I use on Sunday. That is one of the clearest, most potent views of the gospel that we have in all of Scripture. Pierced for our iniquities. So I want to be careful with the term old because of just the connotation, not because you're not allowed to call it old versus new. But you get the new covenant in the old covenant in Jeremiah 31 of how God's going to do an outpouring and what he's going to do in our hearts, all that kind of thing. Ezekiel as well. But covenants are a very common way that God has used, a tool that he's used to communicate with his people, to bring information about himself, to invite them into a relationship, and to actually bring salvation.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, so the covenants are deep and they're rich. And that leads you into your next question. Whoa,
Hey-o.
cha-ching!
So I also like the way that you kind of described what a covenant is in this message. Law and love being the two different parts of it. Can we expand and discuss on those? Is it kind of a false dichotomy to say that you were talking about consumeristic relationships?
Mhm.
Is that like the leaning more towards the lawful part of a covenant?
I don't think so. I guess you could argue like legalism or something, but that you wouldn't call that consumeristic unless I'm trying to think. But I think I think the law and the love are important terms to a covenant because it is a binding agreement. So think of law, but it's a commitment that I make that actually leaves room for more love to actually for love to actually grow. If I have a relationship with one of you, which I do, but it's bound by my ability to get my needs met, then as soon as you don't meet my needs in the way that I think you should, I can jump ship. I can be out. I can pull away from my relationship with you. I'm bound, but I'm bound by my feelings. I'm bound by something that's trivial, something that's not as deep. You know, it's consumeristic because I want something from you. I want to get something out of you, and as much as you give me something, then I'll maybe give you something in return. You know, it's transactional, not transformational as much. You know, whereas I think that's why the law and love together make for a covenant, for a word covenant. It's got to be both.
Mm-hmm.
It can't just be something binding without grace and without care, but it can't just be grace and care without something binding, because if it's just care, it's at the level of feelings that I can just go, well, let's change.
Mm-hmm.
What's binding me and keeping me in relationship to you?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to mess up. You're not going to give me everything that I need all the time, but it's not consumeristic. It's covenantal. You know, now again, not every relationship is, which I tried to give the example of, you know, the grocery store. You know, that's not a covenant relationship. That would be weird.
Oh man,
You know, I know I'm going to be in trouble in a couple of days. But because I said Joe has a covenantal relationship with Target because she goes there no matter what because she loves it.
Could you say that she has a covenantal relationship with Wesco?
Yeah.
She actually might.
Oh yeah,
That's actually probably
Popcorn
true.
machine was
What's
broken this
interesting
morning.
about that is
No, but because of what, like the relationships that she's
yeah,
built there.
She's built relationships there. She's going to go there regardless of their prices, and probably even regardless, even if they didn't have popcorn, which you'd be like, no, because of the relationships.
What if they didn't have soda?
Diet Mountain Dew.
I don't know. That and popcorn? You're talking about a desert wasteland at that point. I don't know.
I guess I have to see how much your
Meaningless.
your covenant's going to
Everything
hold
is
up.
meaningless.
Josh is gonna go cut the lines to those two machines.
See if she shows back up again.
See how covenantal she is.
That's right. Yeah, I think the you know the if you separate these a little bit, God is using a law type covenant, but the substance is the love.
That's good. I like the substance word.
So God is the substance of what the covenant is made of. The law part of the covenant is just the example that they can relate to, that they know of, and what they understand in that time, and especially in that ancient Near Eastern culture that we kind of go back to a little bit. Like that's a symbol that they understand, but when the love part of it, when God comes in, the substance is not necessarily the animal there; it's the love that's there with the sacrifice,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, like, I think of it this way, you know, ask yourself, have you ever loaned money or given something to somebody that you knew you weren't going to get it back,
Mm-hmm.
but you still entered into it like a contract? Like, yes, I'll give you this money, you can pay me this much back at this time. That's right. All the while,
walked away going, I'm not
giving my money back. It's the same thing. God's making a covenant with an imperfect people that he just said you're evil from the beginning of time, and yet he's coming down and making a love law covenant with these people, which again just points to the fact that despite who you are, he's loving you. He's the one that's going to keep it when you can't, and that's all that matters.
And keep that, very well said. Keeping it, he continues to reveal himself in keeping it. So in making it and keeping it, he deepens if we're listening and paying attention, our understanding of who he really is. Like, wow, he's the covenant maker and the covenant keeper. No matter what, despite all my sin. And I've even made it very difficult for him to keep his covenant because he's really wrestling in ways. I know he's God, right? So, but I'm just saying, he really is like, I can't deal with I won't tolerate your sin. I'm going to allow curses to come upon you, but I also can't give you up, and I've committed to you as my people. What do you do with that?
Yeah.
And that's, again, the tension is, to me, the tension is really only resolved in a couple of places. Ultimately, one is on the cross and then the resurrection to validate it. And the next is at the end of the story when heaven comes down and the fullness comes. There's not.
Well, and then check this out. So to your point you just made right there, he's making a covenant with knowing somebody on the other end of this covenant isn't going to keep it, yet pointing forward knows that the one true example of what it that can keep it in Jesus comes to be in mankind.
Yes.
He comes to mankind in the image of the one he created that covenant with to ultimately fulfill that, which fulfills the covenant, which brings Jesus and salvation.
That's right. Jesus is the only human covenant keeper.
Correct.
That's it. Correct. So it's all pointing to, right? All pointing to the gospel. It's all pointing to Jesus. It's as our only hope.
Yes.
It's beautiful. I think the covenant, though, back to your one question, Jake, I do think covenants, let's just even stay in the Old Testament, they're meant to make you go, wow, God really is interested in me. I'm overwhelmed by that, but I'm also noticing that he keeps his word. And I also notice that I don't keep mine. So there's ways to get off track in this whole thing that he's trying to do with me and for me. I could go, well, I'm not worthy. I could decide my worth and my value and just kind of check out of the relationship. But that wasn't the intent. The intent was to go, I'm not, but he is. I can't, but he does. Right. And it was always meant to draw people back to God. Even before Jesus, it was always meant relationally for people to confess and to, I'm not enough, but he is, to confession, like David, in Psalm 51, that kind of a thing, where those are profound sins, but we're all sinners, and so I think that was the point of the covenant, is to showcase who he is, also who we are. That's where you get the story, right? You can't really have a savior without people that need saving. Otherwise, he might think of himself as a savior, but he's not really saving anything. If we're not broken and we're not that bad.
That's also what I was thinking when you were talking about how do we handle do you really need to avoid sin if avoiding sin is not the point, is that balance of the love of a covenant drives your desire to fulfill the law of the covenant, which would, in this example, would be not sinning. And then because when you do that, you are more acutely aware of the love that is driving you back into that.
Yep. I tried at the end. So at the end of it, when we did our reading at the end, it was a little bit in there. And then what I said at the very end. So like, now I'm free to go out and be a witness, but I want to nail down this major piece first before we get to that. So it was almost like a gospel message inside of a specific chapter. That's the point, is I really got to understand. And then even as I go out, because your message was all about getting off of the ark very appropriately, but even as I go out, I have to recommit and re-understand and go back to the source and remind myself that I'm not working for it, and that I'm going to, in my attempt to be holy, I'm not gonna be.
Right.
And you're right. It's not an excuse to default, but I don't know how else to, you're going to sin.
Yep.
You don't have to if you're a Christian, you're spirit filled. So we could talk about that, but that's not the point of, like, God does the heavy lifting. He anticipates. He makes accommodations for. He is the heavy lifter. He is the one that is going to do something about our sin. We just got to see that. We got to see that in the rainbow.
Yep.
Got to see it.
Yep. Yeah, and I think even the statement avoiding sin, like, that's what it should be, is God created me a pure heart. like it's a heart posture. Like I shouldn't just be, okay, oh, like, nope. It's like, I'm walking this way, and I'm being empowered by the Holy Spirit to live in a place that makes my heart lean towards staying away from sin as best as you can.
Yep. That's right. That's good.
All right, that's the wrong tab. tab. Hold on. Oh, okay. So we had a couple of audience. We had a couple of Connect cards come in. I forgot to add them here.
Yeah.
So
This is all fresh. Let's go.
it is covenantally related. So this is where we're going to talk about it. The first question is: if covenants are a blend of love and law, does covenant include warnings to us?
Yes. There are literal warnings within covenants, like I'm thinking of Deuteronomy 28 through 30, where the next generation of Israelites are on the doorstep of the promised land. There are literal warnings for if you don't obey, this is what's going to happen to you.
You're asking, does the covenant include warnings? Was that the question?
I believe that is the question.
Yeah. Yep. I
Yeah,
would agree with that.
They have to.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, the covenant God makes between you and him through salvation has a warning of if you don't.
Not the one in chapter 9, though, because chapter 9 is, even without the deeper understanding of the bow, it's, I'm not going to bring a flood. I'm not going to destroy the earth with a flood. That is a one-sided thing.
Yep.
Regardless of what I do or don't do,
correct,
there is no undoing of that. He makes that promise. And so I would say typically covenants are made by two parties. There are exceptions. Another one is in Genesis 15, where God's the only one that passes between the pieces while Abraham's in a deep sleep.
Yeah.
He doesn't make him sign up for it.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Because he knows.
And then the second question is, what are the elements of law and love in the new covenant?
What are the elements of law and love in the new covenant?
The new covenant is about God's ability to use Ezekiel's terminology, to make dry bones, to make the dead come alive. We're not just a little bit off track and we need a tweak. We're not even sick and we need a doctor. We're dead and we need a resurrection. And so the love part is God breathes life back into us. He breathes us. He brings us back to her. He brings us to new life. The law part of that is interesting. I don't know, in the new covenant, Jesus came to fulfill the law. So I don't think the law goes away. I think the law is...
Well, yeah, because he even said he didn't come to abolish it, right?
Right. So I don't think it goes away, but it's enhanced and ultimately fulfilled in Jesus. But the point is it's ultimately fulfilled in Jesus. And so I think we're back to that perspective on God's laws, with that perspective on holiness, and just making sure that we as new covenant people in Christ are operating from Jesus, because that's the gospel. I'm doing something for Jesus. I'm not going to slap your wrist and be like, no, you're not. You're doing it from him. I don't mean it legalistically that way. No pun intended. Lawfully. I really mean it like the core of the gospel is when I understand who I am, whose I am, what was done for me. Ephesians 2, I was dead in my trespasses and sin, and God does all the rest of the stuff. And now, as you use this passage a lot, and I love how you use it with where God's poem and where his workmanship, and I've seen you in a couple different places use it. I like that. So now it's go out and be a sweet aroma and a trophy of his grace, and
yeah, there's I think Matthew 28 in the Great Commission clears this up a little bit too, and I've talked about this before, not to be a broken record, but there's this implication that when we're creating disciples, we're creating people that follow Jesus, we're creating people that believe in Jesus. Obviously, God is doing the work, but we're going out and helping do the work of the kingdom, right? And so not only are we creating disciples, but then there's that tag at the end that also says, and we're going to teach them to obey God's commandments.
That's right.
And so I think the love part is the fact that you can even be in relationship with Jesus in the first place and have salvation and have his grace. And then after that, there's also this understanding that Jesus was sent to show that it can actually be done. You can come and not only live a holy life, but also and live in the world at the same time. There's obviously the God and the man and the relationship between 100% this, 100% that. And we can't live up to that. But there was an example that was set by his living on earth, and he's saying everything that I've taught you, him being Jesus, being God, all of time, all of this, you also have to follow what this says, right? So there's number one is be in relationship with Jesus. Number two is to work towards him, do his work, towards holiness.
Well said. Isn't it interesting that the first thing coming off of your passage that he says for them to do when they go out, wait, wait.
Yep.
So again, there's a beautiful order to the gospel. Wait to be filled and then go out.
Yep.
As much as everything you just said is absolutely right on.
Yeah, you're correct. Also, yeah, definitely.
Paul says, should we sin so that grace may abound? Never.
Surely not.
Right. Don't call me Shirley, please.
That is the third one of those jokes I've heard
today?
you make in the hour that I've been here today.
Shirley? I just said Shirley for the
It
first
was a
time.
different name.
It was a different name.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't remember what it
was
was
one of the
now
other
though.
two?
What?
Was it with name? Like, don't call me a name?
Yeah, it was that joke.
Now I'm going to listen back to it just for that reason.
Well, that's good. You need to listen to more of them.
Would it be fair to say that the law is really important? He fulfills it, but if the law and love are in tension, you see it in his covenants. It's clear. But would you say, like in Christ, the love of God supersedes the law of God, where in a way it's greater somehow? It covers it.
Because he's the fulfillment of it, I would say yes. But I think because he's the fulfillment of it, he is the law. And so I think it's actually still all encompassing.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Ready for the next question?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So how does it make sense that God wipes out most of the people, then proceeds to put an immensely high value on human life?
I don't think it does. You and I each had a Vodi Bakum quote each of our weeks about the thing that's unfair is that 8 people survived.
Yep.
I don't think that makes sense to me. I'm glad that it doesn't make sense to me, that God is so much greater than a God of second chances. But it's that tension that only gets resolved, I think, in a couple of places in the whole Bible. And that's, he loves us so much and he put such a high value on human life. And we're the culmination of his creation. That it's either that or him resting and everything that means, which is a whole nother separate podcast. I'm just saying that the rest has us in mind as well, because he wants to dwell with us in his creation, and he wants to give us an ability to actually be able to rest, because we're not human doings, we're human beings and all of that, but I think it's crazy how he right out of the boat, he puts an immense value on human beings. If there's any question at all, he clears that right up.
Yeah.
That's not deserved. That's not anything that it doesn't make any sense. He should have wiped us all out. He should have never created us in the first place. I mean, this is all like the potter or the clay talking to the potter, right?
Is it more him returning the value to human life?
Mm-mm.
Is it reaffirming
it never
to them?
left. It never left. That's the tension, is he can't put up with our sin, his wrath and his judgment, even if we don't like it. None of us like it, but it's a very appropriate response of a holy God. The crazy thing is why it doesn't happen more often and more in totality, or why God ever even started the clock on this thing in the first place, knowing that we're going to sin. That's crazy. I love it. I'm
thankful for it.
Right. Does it make any sense to you? I mean, it does, in the sense that our holy God can't look on sin, but he also loves us. It's just, there's a lot of tension in there to me.
Yeah. I think in my life now, it makes more sense than it did before.
Well said.
Only because I've thought through it, but at face value, or thinking about if I would have heard this for the first time, or no, it doesn't make any sense. But you have to wrestle with God's justice being fulfilled and his love and his mercy at the same time. It's just such a hard thing for even people who have been Christians for a long time. But
it's true. I
go back to this idea that if God is God, which he is, he I say again, another thing I say all the time, he can do whatever he wants with whoever he wants, however he wants, because he's always right and he's just.
That's right.
It's maybe this is a really imperfect example, but it's the one that came to my mind. If I create an apple tree and I plant an apple tree and it grows and all of a sudden you start seeing fruit and you start seeing apples and they're growing on all these branches. And then I go through and just start cutting a bunch of branches off of it. It doesn't make any sense until you realize that the cutting of the branches of all those apples are actually going to produce more fruit in the other apples and make them more nutritious and better
Mhm.
and grow more apple trees later because they're going to fall and they're going to make more and more. Like, again, it doesn't make sense to somebody that doesn't understand how it works. They're going, why are you cutting all these off? Right? Well, because they're either going to die or, they're going to get disease or whatever. And it's like, you created the apple tree. You can do whatever you want with it. And in fact, you probably know what's best with it. And if you know, and you're omnipresent and you're omniscient and all the different things, you can see everything from all time and know what's going to come. The cutting of the branches at the time doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
But in the idea of eternity, it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a deep. It's requires a lot of, like you said, a lot of thought and a lot of study, and it's good.
Ready for the next question?
Yeah.
I'm not ready.
All right. Well.
All right. Go ahead now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Last question for the day. It's another discussion point, less a question. Let's talk about the tension between God putting a rainbow in the sky to say hostility is over, but then also knowing at the same time that we would sin and basically devolve into the same state.
Yes.
Before.
That's why I think it's not enough to just say he hangs up his war bow. He actually, according to God and his character, if we're understanding it right, he does have a war bow, and he actually does have to fire it at sin and judgment. And anything that reeks of sin and judgment, or I'm sorry, sin has to be judged. It has to incur God's wrath in an ultimate sense, right? You could at least say that. So he has to have a war bow. He has to shoot the arrows. He has to destroy sin, or so you would think. Well, yeah, of course he does ultimately, but I'm just saying he has to have a war bow with arrows. So he could aim them at us. That would be just and right. And according to the story, he could also aim them at himself, even though he's done nothing to earn it. And somehow that actually counts as far as God's judgment landing on himself, on his son Jesus, ultimately. And Jesus is in our place, taking God's rightful wrath that was due us, and God saying that counts. My wrath has to land somewhere, and I'm choosing for it to land on my son or on myself, however you want to talk about,
Yeah. I don't know that he's even saying hostility is over. He's just saying I'm not going to wipe the face of the earth with a flood again.
I think it's a good, looking at the whole of the story.
Yeah.
I think it's a good first move out of the ark.
Mm-hmm.
I think the sacrifice was good, that Noah made. And I think God saying what he said in Genesis 8, even though every inclination is evil, is like really bad news. Because I think as the first reader or hearer, I'm hoping.
Because that's speaking, because Noah's sitting there going, oh, you're talking about me.
I do think there's immense hostility and destruction has just happened. So I think in the context, I do think it's a really big first move to go, that's not going to happen again. You're right. In an ultimate sense, hostility isn't over, but I'm hanging up my bow. So it's safe to walk out of the ark. You don't have to, the next time it thunders, you don't have to,
right.
Is that box still there? Let's get back in.
That is kind of a thing that you said that I've been thinking about the past couple of days. Is like, what would it have felt like the next time it rained?
Somebody in our small group said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question.
And they would have had to have trust in his promise, right? That it can't be that because God promised.
Especially since the way I understand it, they were not in an area that got much rain.
There's even evidence to suggest that it never even rained before then.
Yep.
First time
not from the way we understand how rain works.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, anybody got anything else to say?
That was good.
All right. Well, that's our discussion of Ben's message, the rainbow. If you are interested in that and want to come back on next week, we'll have another new episode up for you next Friday. If you have any questions for us, you can find these Connect cards at the SCC auditorium. That's the word. They're in the pews. You can put your name and contact information on the back of here if you want. There's a space for your questions too. If you ask a question of the podcast in this method, we'll never use your name. It's completely anonymous. Other than that, I'm going to go back to my saying that this is the final episode of the Becoming That One House podcast.
Yeah, tell us about this.
So what I meant is that it is our final episode in this room.
Heyo!
You.
Me, except you knew it was coming. We have been working on a new podcast space, and we are finally getting at the tipping point where I need to take all of the equipment. I know you might not know how much actual equipment there is in this space just because you see us through the cameras, and the cameras don't show it because we're good at what we do. But
we're so good at what we do.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
Great. I'd venture to say great, actually. Yeah, we're great men. Right, Jared?
Hold on.
Hmm?
What's the name of the mascot for Trix?
That's original.
Is that actually his name? Look it up. Do it. You look. Oh, I do have.
But
a
I don't think
computer
it was
in front of me.
Trick cereal you were talking about.
It's not Trixie.
You were talking about the one with the marshmallows in it, and the what is that called?
Yeah, we were talking about Lucky
Oh.
Charms.
Lucky Charms. Yeah, you asked who's the
Lucky
mascot for Lucky Charms.
Lucky
is
the
what your question was.
leprechaun.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway,
We digress.
so we'll
Oh,
be
do we
moving
ever?
to a new podcasting space. Jared and I will be hooking stuff up and wiring, and Jeff and I will be working on Wi-Fi. So for the next couple weeks, you might see us in a different single camera space. Probably. Did we decide on Ben's office?
I don't think we decided yet.
A little bit hurt.
It'll be upstairs somewhere, but it won't be in the new podcast space. It'll be a few, probably 1 or 2 weeks where we'll be in
Use
that.
the men's restroom.
I would be down for that.
Wouldn't have to take potty breaks. Go right there.
Anyway,
That's a crappy idea, dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, other than that, next week's sermon, was yours the third week of Genesis, or was yours the
First, second, Michael's third.
Okay, and then who closes it
We have 2 more after that.
after Michael?
Yeah?
Wow.
If you were part of the
We have
preaching team
5.
meetings, you would know these things.
Yeah, oh,
you
wait.
are. Okay.
Someone,
all right.
someone altered my schedule that they originally gave me.
Oh,
We have 5 in part 3.
5 in part 3.
that's true. We did change it mid-roll.
Yeah, I blame him for that, not you.
Okay. Thank you. Whether it's true or not, no one will know. But
I mean, it's true. It's true in their hearts. Anyway, so next week is, or this coming Sunday is Michael, and he's going to be talking about
Mike.
Noah being drunk.
all right.
So other than that, we'll see you Sunday.
Ready for a sermon on drunkenness? Probably a few other things too.